Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon in some countries. We are really happy to be here again this week and have another presentation prepared to you by the United States Spiritist Federation. I feel very blessed today because we are going to receive our dear friend Altino Mageste. Altino Mageste, for those who do not know, he's a researcher of Emmanuel's historical novels and member of the GAP, a group of Friends of Paul Friends Group. And he's going to be talking to us about Emmanuel's novels. And if we really wanted to know and to understand and to talk to someone that is really breathing Emmanuel's novels, this person is actually Altino, and we feel very blessed to have him here today. As always, we would like also to say hello to everyone that is following us today, for those who will be listening to this presentation, this broadcasting later. And we start with a prayer of gratitude because we really feel grateful for having this opportunity and having the opportunity of giving and presenting to you all these beautiful teachings that we have and that we have been gathering through Spiritism. So we ask our Heavenly Creator for the blessings, for protection, for His mercy, especially considering the moments we are living on this world today. And we thank our brother Jesus and all the benefactors that have been assisting us in our personal journey of spiritual improvement. And we ask once more for guidance and protection for our dear friend Altino, so that we can learn from his words and be touched and motivated to continue working on our inner transformation. So without further ado, I'm going to present again Altino to you, and Altino now is with you, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Wow. Thanks for this warm welcome, my Americans, friends. I'm so glad, my dear friends. It's a joy to be here and be able to join my heart with yours to speak about the gospel and through the historical novels of Chico Xavier and Emmanuel. It's it's a pleasure, but it's the first time I'm talking to you, so it's different today. I would like to thank all of you from the American Spiritist movement for the brilliant job you do with ups and downs like in everywhere, but you are moving on, you are going on, and you are doing what have to be done. So thank you very much for doing this brilliant job you are doing there. I would like to thank you, Jussara Korngold, as well for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. Just to say to you, I have opportunity to meet Jussara and João on the way to Pedro Leopoldo, where we spent there a wonderful day. May I think it was Mr. Congold, Miss Consgold, another friend, and I. We went to Joviano's house. We could get in thanks to a key detector who was there and allowed us to visit in a more meditative way. So the house was deserted, there was a silence. So it was a day to remember, right, Jussara? So it was a great experience be there. So I had 2 or 3 seasons in the USA. It was a short experience there, but during this time I experienced the New Jersey Spiritist movement intensely, and it was an amazing time. There were at that time many studies, fraternal visits to a hospice in a town called Elizabeth, which is about 25, 30 miles away from Newark. And there I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Carvalho, Julinho. So I have good memories from my time with you in America. And although I don't go very often to USA anymore, I feel very attached to its Spiritist movement. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much for having me and for inviting. And before I start my speech, I would like to say two things for you. First one, my English is not that great. And as I say before to Jussara, I know how to curse in English, but I find it exceedingly difficult to pray in English. And please have patience and charity while you listen to me. Sorry for my grammatical and pronunciation mistakes. It's a mix of Italian and Portuguese with this British accent, so I am in the middle of everything. But I hope I can do that and deliver this for you. And second thing, I do not come here to teach you anything extraordinary. So, in fact, I'm not here to teach you anything. I just come here to share with you my reflections, my research, my findings, and my passion for the literary works of Emmanuel and Chico. I spent more than 30 years studying, investigating, and discovering the beauty alongside the example of the first Christian communities. That is the core of my studies, the core of my investigations. So, learning from the first Christian communities. But please don't think that I have much to teach, okay? I'm not the one. Maybe I have something to share with you, and that's why I am here. So, a reader, uh, a reader reads a book to learn something. It's obviously right. If you need to learn how to invest your money, you read books on stocks and financial market. So if you want to learn how to cook, improve your diet, you will read recipe books. If you want to travel, to discover a nice place, what you have to do? You have to read traveling books or travel guides. If you want to improve your life, you read a self-help book, right? But if you really want to transform yourself and be a better person, you must read the Gospel of Jesus. Because there lies the key to understanding God's immeasurable love. There is the key to understand God's love in the Gospel of Jesus. You can find it anywhere, everywhere. But the Gospel of Jesus, it is a secure path to take us and to understand God, to feel God, and to learn about God and its immeasurable love. The big problem is that there is a big gap between is what was read, what was understood, and what the text really meant. And because of this, there are basically two major problems here: a cultural problem and a linguistic problem. Sometimes we understand the text, but we do not understand the context. Or sometimes we understand the context, right? But we don't understand the pretext, the reason this book was made. So, for this reason, the Gospel of Jesus looked like a labyrinth, a puzzle, and not a straight path. So, many times people get lost, or they get discouraged, or and the Christians themselves sometimes they get lost. They lose the interest in reading the Bible because what they read they can't understand. They can't feel it. It's a very old expressions and it doesn't make sense. The things what's said in there. And then there start a problem because people stop reading because of linguistic problems and cultural problems, problems of interpretation. And then we start moving from the seed from the root of the gospel to something else. And then we start to learn only from what we heard other people saying. And most of times, what we learn just listening is just an interpretation of what the others think about Jesus and his gospel. So most of the time, it's only a point of view. It's a personal interpretation of the message, but it's not the message itself. And then one can ask, well, but in the past, the gospel, all the good news, they were spread uh, by speaking. Well, in truth, yes, the spread of the gospel began orally. But when we speak about orality in Jesus' time, we have to take in consideration that it was a faithful recreation of words and all sacred texts. So, in the past, orality was valuable, but in our society nowadays, what counts is the written text. For example, if you buy a house and it's not registered in your name, even if you have paid for it, it's not legally yours, right? You must have it signed in paper. If you say that it's mine, no, it's not. So, in the past, for example, there was no birth registration. The father's word was enough to state, so this child is son of mine, right? On the past, this is son of, and it was enough. But nowadays, um, if you would like to travel with your child, when you arrive to the immigration, if you don't have a document, a paper proving that you are a parent, you cannot travel. You cannot take that child with you, even if it is your son or daughter. You can't because there is nothing written in there. So we just can travel. And but in the past it was different. I'm going to tell you here something that happens to Paul when he was in prison. Probably you remember that thing, that moment, what happened to him. Paul had been scourged in prison, and then he said, "What right do you have to arrest and to punish a Roman citizen without having tried him in court?" And then the soldier was startled and asked, "But are you a Roman citizen?" And then Paul said, "Yes." And his word was enough to stop flagellation. He said, "Yes." So nowadays, if you don't have a paper, a document, or something or ID that prove who you are, it doesn't matter what you say who you are. So we need a paper, we need something written, and then here starts the magical of those five historical novels um, by Emmanuel and Chico Xavier, because this is the main reason of the historical novels of early Christianity then, because they bring teachings of Jesus in a simple and pedagogical way. They clearly bring us life, anguish, uncertainty, fear, faith, hope, and the whole process of building the faith of the first Christians. Here, on those pages, we can find in written what was said. On these pages, we can feel what was felt, right? Um, uh, and we have these unwritten words. So, unwritten words are documents, they are valid. So, more than books, then, we have here a guide. So, we have a guide for Spiritist groups in Paul Stephen. If one is reading there are loads of rules and things there on the early churches, still nowadays and more than ever, we can apply them to our groups. So we have 2,000 years ago, we have 50 years later, and you have Hail Christ, and you have Renunciation. They are 5 different books talking about the same topic, but one one of each, is in a specific way. So that's why it's very important reading all of them. We have here guides, not just books. So, because of it, we must give Emmanuel's novels the value and respect they deserve. They are not just a list of names and places. These books are not yellow pages. I get incredibly sad when I see and hear people from the Spiritist movement saying that Emmanuel's novels are secondary books. If they were as if they were just reading to pass the time. So you just read it out. Today's a cold day. You take a nice place in the corner, and then you're gonna read it, just because you have nothing else to do. And that's not the case. That's not the case. Because a good book only exists after it is read. But a book becomes alive when it transforms us. For example, The Little Prince by Zubiri. The Little Prince, then. When we read that amazing quote, you become responsible forever for what you have tamed. Everybody knows this quote, right? So this is a wonderful one. It's profound. It's a wonderful quote. And it will remain only, and it's just a wonderful and profound quote, if I don't put it in practice. From the moment that I live, and from the moment that when I start to live what I read, the book comes to life and reach its goals to change something in me, on me, in my thoughts, in my behavior. That's what a book is for. And so that is what the Bible is for as well. So in Greek, Bibles means a collection, a group, a set of books, biblios. And then one can ask, if everything is important, if the books are a guide, if we need them, and why some people undervalue Spiritist novels? It's so sad. These books, they are so amazing. So editions with brilliant information, loads of culture, society, everything is in there from the first communities, from the first Christian communities. And why? Some people saying that, oh, it's not important, it's just a book. It's just a secondary piece of work. First, we have to do what is the core of Spiritist movement. But you know what I think personally? I think people say that those books are not important because if they read these books as they should be read, they're gonna have to change themselves. And reading them and feeling that thing that you are responsible, right, for what you are reading them. So it's gonna take you away from your comfort zone. And in this case, if you have to do a big change after reading a book, and if you don't want, it's better to leave things as they are, just being a secondary books. Because if you put it on first level, you're gonna see that you're gonna have to change. After reading those books, you have to change yourself. If you don't, it means that something wrong, not with the books, but with you. Because when we read these books, we are forced to change, to transform, and transforming requires effort, determination, commitment. But few are the ones who wanted to read because if they read it, they will have to take action. And that's why it's easy to say it's just a book. And day after day, year after year, decade after decade, those books are losing the importance on the Spiritist movement. Our young generations nowadays on the Spiritist movement, they don't read. Why they don't read? Because us, the old generation, we don't teach it to them. Because if you have 400 pages to read, if you don't tell what is it about, if you don't feed the young ones with this amazing way to learn and what is in there, how can we expect that the next generations that's going to take our places in the Spiritist groups, they will talk about it? No, they won't, because we didn't sow the seeds in there on their hearts, and that's our responsibility. So, following this short introduction about the importance of this novel and the importance of reading them, let's talk about its author. In fact, there are two authors here, right? One is Emmanuel, the one who sent the texts, and Chico, the one who received them. I know that the people love to talk about Chico, right? And some people say that, oh, Chico was the reincarnation of X and this and that. But personally, I just like to mention that Chico was and is a man that acceptable that accepted to follow his mission and became an instrument to spread God's love on its best. And Chico did it. I think that we need another talk just to talk about Chico Xavier, because there are many things to be said about him. But yes, he was just a very humble heart, a man with a mission that followed step by step, and at the end, he could look back and say, I did it. And among this um, immense work, we have those five pearls, those gems that are these novels. And the publication of these books would be impossible because Chico Xavier received only primary education. So it was it's impossible to think that somebody could write those books by itself only, has been educated on primary education, receiving only primary education. So it's very, very difficult someone could do it, especially saying things that he didn't live it, things that he never had experienced about it. This is also then the Chico Xavier life itself, his mediumship itself is an instrument um, that God, the Almighty, gave us to understand and to show us life after death, and also to teach us the value of the mediumship and the psychography, working in the name of love and the benefit of all of us. And the simplicity, it was born in the simplicity. A man in the countryside of Minas Gerais, a place in the middle of nowhere with primary education, started producing those books. So there was only one explanation for this: a communication between the spiritual world and us. And Chico Xavier, with those books, are like a mirror that reflect this truth. And when I see the spiritist speakers putting their titles and their professions on the posters or lectures, I simply remember Chico, Chico Xavier saying, I am just a speck. And it's amazing because what kind of speck is able to produce this amount of book is the one that could say that I'm just a speck, but I know that my mission here, I know what I have to do. So we have to stop every time, every single time saying that, oh, this book is written by Dr. This. Today we have a meeting with the Dr. That. And it's not a lack of respect to calling people. We're going to have a speech today delivered by our friend, by our fellow, because that was the way that Jesus called his friends, my friends. And I don't understand why nowadays in the Spiritist movement, the most important thing is not the message, is the title. It doesn't matter what the person is saying, speaking, delivering. If he's a doctor, and sometimes he's not a doctor, sometimes it's just he's something else. So we have to stop it, and we have to remember that Chico Xavier was just a speck. So we have to follow and remember all the times in our Spiritist movement, we have to turn a key down our own light and bring up the light of the gospel of the Jesus. Less I talk about myself, more I will talk about the Jesus and the message. And if someone will be upset, oh, but you did introduce me as a doctor, you did introduce me with my titles or how many books I have produced, this person is not ready, is not prepared to do what a Christian speaker was supposed to do. Turn off himself and light up Jesus. So, but to talk about Emmanuel, I'm just saying this to talk about how humble was Chico Xavier. And we don't need the titles, okay? We don't need the titles to talk about Jesus. So this is one of the author, which is Chico Xavier. The second one is our friend, our amazing Emmanuel. But to understand Emmanuel, we need to be prepared to see many personalities in one person. It's amazing what we can find when we see Emmanuel through his books. And we have many faces. We have many shapes of Emmanuel in there. And the first one I would like to bring for you here is the face of the poet. Emmanuel is a poet. Yes, and he is a wonderful poet, an amazing poet. I remember when I was, on that time, I was doing my master degree, and I was talking to a teacher, and on my bibliography, I put there, he asked then the writers that have been impacted in my writings, and I say, well, I love Emmanuel. And he said to me, oh, the philosopher Emmanuel Kant. I say, no, just Emmanuel. I couldn't explain to him who was this Emmanuel. So, but Emmanuel, yes, he is uh, perfect. He is a perfect as a poet. I will read here for you some sentences that he create, and he is a master, a genius using figures of speech, metaphor, and similes. For example, you shook off the dust of the miserable sandals of the flesh. So deep in it. Soothe the minuscule wave in the desert of the heart. So there is no wave, there is no water in the desert. So he know how to create these things. And in another one, he say, the days of the human soul are draining away. And the beautiful one, I really love this one, is when Emmanuel say that my head is touched by the snow of disenchantment. The children are of God before landing sweetly in our hands. It's a beautiful way to say that the magical the magic of being a parent. The children are of God before landing sweetly in our hands. So Emmanuel is a master. He said that the petals of ours swirl incessantly in the whirlwind of time, or the moon spilled its argentine rays in the loving and immense mirror of the waters. So it's brilliant, mirror of water. So he's talking about a lake. So it's so deep. So this is one of the faces of Emmanuel, a poet. Emmanuel is amazing as a poet. And we have also Emmanuel, the Roman citizen. In the book 50 years later, there is a speech um, of Helvidio Lucius, and he was talking about Nestorio, which is one of the reincarnations of Emmanuel on that time. So it's called 50 on book 50 years later. Um, and he said he was talking to someone, and Elvidio Lucius said that Nestorius knows both a book by Sallustius. So Sallustius is a poet, right? And also he knows a page by Petronius. So Petronius is very well known by his Satyras, right? Which is very important if you are studying Roman literature. Greek authors too have no secrets for him. However, considering his predilection for Roman reasons, I want to believe that he was born at our doorsteps. So, he's saying that this story knew a lot about everything, and he was a slave. The story was a slave. But his knowledge about every single thing from the everyday life of the Romans, it was amazing. And then Ovidius Lucius was mesmerized. Wow, how is it possible? So Emmanuel knew the story knew every single thing in the Roman society. And he used terms and words, quotes, and also he knows about laws. Um, he knows absolutely everything that the only one who lived was was familiar with the Roman environment to say that. Word likes triclinio. Okay, triclinio is a place where people gather. You could take a meal, and also you could. It's like a long chaise. You could line in there, and but he said that triclinio, not nowadays, not even nowadays, triclinio is used. I had to do a massive research to find out what was that. So triclinio, he used this word. So he used also peristyle. Peristyle is the internal part of a building surrounded by columns. I would like to call attention here in Pedro Leopoldo on Joviano's house, which we call Fazenda Modelo. Jussara, João, the Mr. and Miss Corngold, and I, we've been in there. And that construction, they have a peristyle in there because it's a Roman building. So the story is behind, right? And yes, he used that word peristyle. Only someone that knew what is that, well, is able to quote what is that. Because if you go to Rome today and ask what is the peristyle, they don't know it. They don't know it. So someone has to know this to quote this. Another word he uses peplum. It's come from Greek peplos, which is a tunic or a gown. So it's not usual. How can a slave saying these things? So he, in fact, he was a Roman citizen, and also Emmanuel, he's, he quotes and he tells us names of the some cities that he's changed. The names changed along the history, And for example, Minturnas was changed into tragetta. So how is it possible someone say these things if he didn't live it, if he didn't know it? So Emmanuel, in fact, again, it's a proof of reincarnation because despite of being on that reincarnation as an Astorio, he knew he knew um, he knew about everything, and the only thing to explain this is reincarnation. So the deep memory was in there. And another phase of Emmanuel is the storyteller. So we have the poet, the Roman citizen, and we have Emmanuel as a storyteller. Emmanuel, he knows how to create the atmosphere and he knows how to deliver it. He knows how to capture the reader's attention. And he knows how to bring out mistakes without judging. He knows how to talk about faults in order to lift us. He knows how to talk about pain while healing our souls. Because when Emmanuel is talking about suffering on his books, or when something that tragic happens, straight away, if something is going down, straight away, he put it up again. He never let us, the reader, feeling down with the sensation while reading that thing. So he always, everything that he does is to make us feel better. And there is a whole technique used by Emmanuel that is a relationship between um, the beginning and the end of every book. For example, Paul and Stephen starts with a sunny day in Corinth, right? The glorious morning in Corinth. That's the way the book starts. And it ends with the twilight. The last um, phrase of this book is about the twilight, but it begins with a sunny day. So every every good book, every proper piece of high literature, there is always this balance between the first page and the last one. So one paragraph, the first one and the last. So we may not be thinking about it, but during the process of the reading, it's still in us. So Paul and Stephen, for example, talking about Emmanuel as a storyteller, okay? He never lose the track. It's linked at the beginning and the end. And Emmanuel is amazing. There is another face of Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a historian. And here the things get starting serious. Because Emmanuel, he is very rich in details. Very, very rich in details. And he scrutinizes it. He goes deep in everything he writes regarding historic aspects of that society. There is a one chapter, one of the last ones in the 2,000 years ago. This chapter is called "In the Last Minutes of Pompeii." Emmanuel described there, step by step, what happened on that day about the destruction of Pompeii. Also, we have in Paul and Stephen, no, also in 2,000 years ago, about the destruction of Jerusalem. And I can tell you, because I read a lot, and this is a subject that I like, history of Pompeii and Jerusalem. And I can tell you, Emmanuel is far better than Flavius Josephus, which is one of the best, if not the one, regarding those topics. But Emmanuel is not behind. He is, for me, He's far better than Flavius Josephus. So he knows loads of things and it's in there. But sometimes we are just reading these books just to pass time, not to learn. And Emmanuel, as a historian, he teaches about life in Rome, life in Capernaum, life in Jerusalem. In everywhere the, the, the plots take place, we learn something from there. For example, in Rome, we learn about games, the Roman games, social lives, places, habits. You know, there are lots of historic information there. And there is one specific one I would like to share with you. This one is when in the beginning, one of the first chapters of 2,000 years ago, when he was talking to his friend, and he said, after all this series of scandals that took me away from the consulate, I felt the end of my infamous and miserable acts in front of inflexible executioners who condemned me to the terrible torment of strangulation. Mind this word, please, strangulation. Experiencing then all the torments and the anguish of the death. The most interesting thing, however, is that I revisit the unspeakable moments of my passage through the dark waters of Aqueronte. And then here we have to stop and think about why he's talking about Aqueronte. Because in Greek literature, it seems, sorry, in the Greek literature, Aqueronte is the river that when one is dying, the body stays and someone comes and take his soul to the other side. So how could someone receiving this, in this case, Chico Xavier, know all these things about Greek literature in a book talking about Roman citizens? So it's very deep. Emmanuel here is talking about Greek literature and giving an example of Aqueronte. And he carry on saying that it seemed to me that I had descended into the dark places of Averno. And then when I saw this name, I said, but why he's saying Averno? Averno. Averno is a lake, according to the book, where the light of the gods does not penetrate. So it was too dark. The waters, the light couldn't pass through. And he said that the great multitude of victims then approached my anguished and suffering soul, demanding justice and reparation, and bursting into cries and snobs which perished me in the depth of my heart. And it is very important here, and it's just a bit of the text. But if you go to research Averno, Aqueronte, and then you can face that Emmanuel is a genius. Because this place Averno, in fact, it's very close to Pozzuoli in Rome, in Napoli. Okay, and the name Averno, it comes from the Greek Avernos, ave, the birds, and nous, the know. So Avernus, no bird. Till that, okay, it's just a name, right? But why no birds in there? Because this place, it's very close to Vesuvius as well. It is a place of, it's a volcanic area, and the water, the gases from there, is not adapted for birds. So birds cannot nest in there. They can't stay in there. And that's why, and it's dark, the waters. And that's why Emmanuel say that the lights of the gods can't go through that. So he knows what he's talking about. Also, the Virgilio, the poet, he talks about it as well. And even Dante on its Inferno, he quote Aqueronte as well to talk about his Inferno. So Emmanuel is going deep on Greek mythology. It's when he's talking about his own problems to his friend, he's bringing with him all it's his knowledge about culture, about literature. So it is very, very important knowing all these things to understand how rich those novels are. But also, Emmanuel calls the reader's attention to serious and remarkable facts without, without ever losing his responsibility to the gospel. Emmanuel, all the times, even when he's talking about history, if he's talking about art, if he's talking about environment, anything, his responsibility is lead the reader to the gospel in every single example. And it's 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 we can confirm that because in 1939 Germany was just invading Poland, and in that time of the world was scared of the event of a second world war, and also it was there that Emmanuel launches on the way to the light, a caminho da luz. So you see, if the world is talking about the darkness, Emmanuel is bringing us the light. So even in the historical moment of the modern society, and it was called the dark era for the modern society, the Second World War, and what Emmanuel does, he brings us on the way to the light. So it is amazing. So we have another face of Emmanuel, the guide. On the book, 50 years later, there's a journey from a young one, a young girl called Celia Lucius, and his journey from Rome to Minturns is a rich description with geographical details, and it shows us a deep detail of the territory, the, the knowledge that Emmanuel has on that area is absolutely incredible. It is incredible. He said things that I have very old books which have been published before Spiritism books published by Kardec has been written, and I have those books, and it follows step by step. Even there's a quote that when Celia was traveling, um, she was admiring the orange trees. And in fact, on those books that I have, the old ones, they said exactly that. On that way, the best oranges of Italy was cultivated in there. And it's amazing. So only a person that knows that step by step, so inch by inch, is able to describe all that richness of details. And we have to keep in mind that Publio Lentulus, Emmanuel, had a villa, a house in Pompeii. So from Rome to Pompeii, it was necessary to do that way. So the same way that Celia did when she left Rome, walking down to the south, and then finished his uh, um, route on Minturnis, a city in Italy. Uh, it's the same one that he used to do to go to Pompeii. That's why he could tell step by step and describe uh, um, everything on that road. That's why if you, next time when you start reading 50 years later, you're going to see the richness of the details in there, because Emmanuel knows that. He knows it. It's his path. So, we talk about many phases of Emmanuel, but I would like to bring to you now the most important phase of Emmanuel. All the others, they are incredible, amazing. But this one is above all of them. Because I'm going to talk to you now about the evangelist phase of Emmanuel, which is the amazing one. Is the one that we see that the transformation from Publio Lentulus to Emmanuel, and then we can see that God always work on us. God trusts on us. He wants us to do the right thing, and Emmanuel proved that. Emmanuel as evangelist. Let me take a book here to show you. You definitely know those set of books, right? The Gospel by Emmanuel. So for me, Emmanuel is the fifth evangelist. And Emmanuel, he's very, how can I say, he's just looking to us as a reader, and what he wants is lead us to a safe way of evangelization without taking us to a winding road. He just wants to take us to the right place, to the way with capital W, which is Jesus. So this evangelization is the most important thing for Emmanuel. So all the books, all the messages are directed to Jesus. Emmanuel's novels are like the lenses of a microscope that bring us the details that often go unnoticed. Sometimes it passes and we can see. Sometimes it's so difficult, as I say in the beginning. We have difficulties and barriers to understand the gospel, to understand the message. And that's why Emmanuel is so clear. That's why Emmanuel is so straight when talking about gospel, about evangelization. And then I can tell you, if your day has been dry as a desert, Emmanuel books will act as an oasis. If your life has been dark, Emmanuel's novels will be lights shining there and will show you a safe path to the Father's home. So we have to look to these books as a gift from the above. These books are a proof that the gospel of Jesus has to go ahead. We cannot stay and read those books just as a piece of literature for our sweet hours, just to spend our hours, our time. We have to use them as a weapon to fight the good fighting. That's why we have those books. I would like to ask you, please, João, to display for us some of pictures. The first, the other ones, not the book ones, please. Yes. And now I would like to talk to you then about my discoveries and share to you the importance of those books and to let clear that they are not fiction. This one here is the Carcere Marmetinum, or Prisão Marmetina. This is the place in the, it's quoted in three the books 50 years later, 2000 years ago, in Paul and Stephen. This is the place where all the characters meet there. So Paul, Peter, Nestorio, Abigail, Publio Lentulus, all of them meeting in there. And I would like you to see with me one of the names you're gonna read on this sign on the side. It says Lentulu, Lentulu and Chetego. You see, it's in there, and it say that altri complici di Catilinea. Lentulu here. Do you remember when I said to you that Publio Lentulus was that Publio Lentulus was talking to his friend, and he was talking about the experience that he had a dream of his great grandfather. Is this one Lentulu? And do you remember when I said that you keep in mind word strangulation? That's the way they've been killed, by strangulation. And so Emmanuel was writing a book talking about himself, and he quoted his great grandfather, and we have a proof that the right one. He was not lying. He was not creating a character. It is in there. And if you see the last name on the plaque, it say Simone di Giora, difensore di Gerusalemme, contro Tito e Vespasiano. Simone di Giora. So, do you remember that young man that threw a stone on Livia Lentulus' face on the beginning of the story? Do you remember the name of his father? André di Giora. And when he said he went to have a conversation and he tried to ask to Publio Lentulus, please release my son. I will look after him. It's not going to happen again. Give my son back to me, please. And he said that I have no money. I am a very poor man, but I have very important relatives working on the temple of Jerusalem. And then I find out that he was talking about Simone di Giora. As you can see, he was decapitated. So it's true. Everything on those books, on those novels, is true. And also in here is the place where Celia Lucius asked her grandfather to visit Ciro, his beloved one. So everything happened in this place. And when I'm doing my trips, one of the highlights of the trip is when we go to this place. And so as you can see on the picture, it's been the prison of Peter and St. Peter and St. Paul. So loads of stories to tell about it in there. Could you please, João, the next picture? Yes, and this one, as I said to you, in the last minutes of Pompeii, here Emmanuel described everything that happens in there. This picture, or both pictures, I took them in Pompeii, and you can see the bodies, right? The body was covered by ashes first, before the explosion itself from the volcano, from Vesuvius in 79 BC. And Emmanuel say these things clearly and he explain. And if you do a parallel from what Emmanuel states and what academic researchers find out is the same thing. And it's incredible, unbelievable. Next time you read 2000 years ago, and if you have opportunity to go to Pompeii, follow it step by step. Also, um, there is a house, a villa. Actually, there is a house, not a villa, in Pompeii that many friends, spiritist friends, when go to Pompeii, say, "Oh, this is the house of Publio Lentulus." No, the house that we find in Pompeii is another Lentulus, because when Emmanuel start his description, where the villa was, it was not in town; it was in the surround of it, the skirts of it. So, but it's in there. And every time I go to Pompeii, I always ask, "Did you find something about a villa called Lentulus?" And it's amazing because they say, "Not yet, but if there was it, we'll find it." So it's amazing. So prove that Emmanuel also teaches what really happened on the last minutes of Pompeii. Next slide, please, João. So we have Vesuvius behind, and you have the remains. This is the market of Pompeii. So it seems to be close, but it's a bit away, the distance of Herculanum and Pompeii. It's just to show you that everything is real. It's not fiction here when Emmanuel quotes things and said it. So I could prove it. I've been there and I checked it. And we have no time to go through all these things, but what I'm saying to you that is real. It's in there. Next picture, please, Joe. Oh, do you remember when I told you about the words that he used, the peristilo? Peristilo, the lower peristyle of the Domus Augustiana. So, peristilo. Peristilo was a part of the construction, as I say to you. It was inside, but it was surrounded by columns in there. And then you can see um, on the other side, other highlighted words talking about the bridges and the places that when Emmanuel said it, every single place that Emmanuel said that in Rome, I've been there and I checked it, every single thing. And every single thing is real, even if it's not in there. On the on the right side on the picture, if you can see the book with my thumb on it, with my finger on it, on the orange bit, you're going to see Ponti di Quattri Capi. So there's a note in there, okay? It's on Fabricius Bridge. And the name of this bridge is because there was a statue there with four heads. So Quattri Capi, four heads. And nowadays, what we have in there is just a copy. It's not the original one. Now we can see how amazing is the psychography and the communication between Emmanuel and Chico Xavier, because he was talking about something that there are no more. But if there's a copy, replication in there, is because there was original one. So there is no way to state that, oh, it's a fake book, it's just a creation. No, it's real. Next slide, please. As you can see here, Ponte Fabricio or Pons Fabricius, and there's a picture of the bridge on the side. This bridge is still there. It was rebuilt centuries ago, but they use the same things. And as you can see, the name of The person is still there, Fabrizio. And I took the book, as you can see, with a picture that states the name of that bridge. On that place is where where Celia Lucius, at the end of the day, she was walking with the little one, Ciro. She left her father's house and she was wandering in Rome. And at the end of the day, she was tired and crying, and she didn't know where to go. And Emmanuel described that moment on the way that only he knows how to deliver this, to bring out tears on our eyes. And he said that Celia Lucius sat there, and a woman named Orfilia came and took her to her house. So this place is real. It's not a creation, and we cannot see a real story like that and we taking it just as a fiction, as a literature without value. No, it's real, it's true, and we have to follow it. We have to live it, not just read, but we have to live it. And next one, please, João. This place in 2000 years ago, when Publio Lentulus returned after the Battle of Jerusalem and he come as a hero, they started walking a procession through the roads and the streets of Rome, and it starts here. It's called Portico di Ottavia. If you see 2000 years ago, on that moment, the procession through the roads, the one that was to finish at the Colosseum, it starts in here. And on that place start the Jewish quarter of Rome. So it's a very important place, and also it's quoted on the books of Emmanuel. Next one, please. Oh, this is a lovely place and loads of history in here. History, Roman and Italian history, but also history of Celia Lucius, because this is the place where she spent the night, and then her grandfather come alive to her in spirit and have an amazing conversation with her. So it's such important place. And when we are traveling, doing this road in Italy, it's not necessary doing any studies or saying anything in there, because the energy, the vibration, the peace that we feel in there, I can tell you, I feel Celia Lucius inside there, in our side, praying, and it's a magic moment. So this is Grotta di Tiberio in the south of Italy. Next one, please. This is the town of Minturnas. There's a chapter called the Old Man of Minturnas. So this is the place. This is the last place that Celia Lucius stayed there. And then there she changed her name into Irmão Marinho. That's the place where her name was changed, in Minturnas. After that, she goes to Alexandria in Egypt. So this is the place, and also it's real. And when we can see it from this perspective, from this point of view, but the town is in the top of a mountain, and it's absolutely beautiful. And when you go there, you can imagine Celia Lucius living in that place where she spent a lot of time with Irmão Marinho, and then she changed her name because of it. Next one, please, João. And that's me again here to you. So that's what I would like to share with you, my researches, my findings, and I would like to say thank you to you. And I really, really would like to ask you to read these books again, to meditate it. You don't have to read it fast and quick and like this. Take time, drink of it, take the best of it, and be sure that those novels are food for our souls. If you have troubles or difficulties, let those books lead you and you will feel and you will find Jesus. My American friends, Americans from the American Spiritist movement, in the name of, I thank all of you and I hug all of you in the name of Jusara Kongold, my dearest friend, Danielle that's behind, João behind. Thank you very much for having me, and may Jesus bless all of you. Thank you very much for this moment.
Thank you, Altino. That was absolutely great. We could be hearing you talk for many more hours, to go deep into each one of these novels. It's very important, I think, and I really would like to emphasize here something that you said. Those are not books that Emmanuel has written to us just to satisfy our, whims or desire for romance or novels, something like that. It has precious lessons. And truly, I've been meditating this week, kind of preparing for your talk today and thinking about, it's always interesting for us to start wondering why exactly did Emmanuel decide to write to us those books, besides the history, the beautiful examples of noble souls. But the thing is, I was thinking and remembering him as being Publius and having had the chance of meeting Jesus face to face. And I think that in a way, maybe of course he's healed of that as well, but it resonates in his soul so much by thinking about us, his poor sisters and and brothers, and saying, listen, you are like me, you still have been resisting Jesus and the call of Jesus for so long. So I'm going to give you something that is going to inspire, to motivate you, to show how to not be afraid to go through all the stages you have to go in order actually to make your spirit becomes light as well. So I think that, thinking about knowing exactly what it is to have refused Jesus.
Yes, Sarah, that's absolutely right.
He understands us. And so I was thinking, oh my God, and like you're saying, there is so much that we can gather from that in terms of how this works on us on a subliminal level, not with, the teachings that is pop, 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 pop. It's there. No, it's something that leads you to meditate. And I think, like you said, we really have to go through these works again and savor each page and each dialogue. And the prayers and everything that it is so beautiful that rings from here. So it's amazing to have this opportunity to revisit the importance of for us to go ahead and go to this book again. In fact, in our Spiritist Center here in New York, I normally, when people come, and are having some troubles of the soul, or even, some sadness and melancholy, I say, no, what, I think if you read Paul and Stephen, you're going to find healing. And it's amazing the number of people that have been following this and how well they feel after reading this book. So I think, it's a book that heals the soul.
That's right. Sarah, one of the things that I really like on Emmanuel, because he's very humble when he's teaching his fails, his failures. And I think that the greater message of those books is Emmanuel said, listen, I missed my glorious moment when Jesus invited me. But I'm gonna tell you that there was a young lady called Celia Lucius. She followed this calling. There is another young man called Paul of Tarsus. Read it, see it, and then we have to bring it to us in our own lives and say that, where is my Damascus way? Am I living it? Maybe this is the moment that Jesus is calling me, and I can take this opportunity now, or I'm going to have to wait for centuries. And what Emmanuel is trying to say to us is, don't waste time. And he tells us with his own example. So, yes, it's an invitation on the purest way, on the meaning of saying that, let's follow Jesus. This is the moment, right here and right now.
We have some questions for you. Actually, some of them I'm
Wow.
asking because I know that, sometimes the public is a little shy. And let's see here. Well, yeah, I'm sure many people would like to know a little bit more about that, the reincarnations of Emmanuel that he describes in his novel. Who was Emmanuel, and who do we know?
Yeah, so there is also a story, right? Um, and mainly those are those where Emmanuel himself take part as a character,
Mhm.
at least that he states in there. It's in 2,000 years ago as a Publio Lentulus, but in 2,000 years ago it's very different because he talking himself as well, but as his own great father. Publio Lentulus Surra, the one that was died by decapitation in the Carcere Mamertino. So he talks about himself there. And then again about Nestorio, which was a slave 50 years later. But what Emmanuel, in fact, and there is also, sorry, he comes also on, I forgot the name now, the one that starts in Spain, Renunciation.
Yeah, renunciation. Yeah.
Yes, as a father. So and also he's the one that teaches Alcione,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm dyslexic. I forgot the name now.
Yeah, yes, yes. That Father
Yeah,
Damiano.
not yes, Father Damiano. Yes, Father Damiano. I was mixing with the book Memories of Father Germano. Yes, it's Father Damiano. That's right. Yes. So he talks about himself there as well. And we can see how he was getting closer and closer and closer until became Emmanuel, the evangelist. But Emmanuel, he never, ever, sorry, there's another question here, but he never, ever put himself in the spotlight. When he talks about himself, is just behind the scenes and he leads the attention to another character. When he's talking about himself, it's only to say that I missed it, I failed here. So learn it from me, don't do it. And I have here a question from Vicente Pessoa. Altino, do you have a favorite character in those books and why?
Yeah, I know your answer.
Yeah, let me tell you, I have and I have two. I have and I have two. And so in the whole works, I am fascinated by Paul of Tarsus. And it's not because he's a giant of the gospel. It's not because of this. It's because I am very much Saul of Tarsus. And when I look to him, I say that, well, I have to be like that man one day. So I have lots of things to do. So I love Paul. I love Paul. But there is another one that I really like, and is a young friend that Paul called my son in spirit, my spiritual son, which is Timothy. So I love them so much, and I'm so jealous because the last letter that Paul wrote from Rome, probably in Carcere Marmitino, was to Timothy and not to me. So that could be me instead of Timothy. So I'm planning to this recent episode just to say to you that I like this as a friend, not because they are heroes. I like them as example and as a friends. So I like everyone in there, but those two are very special for me.
There's another question here from Mackenzie Mello. Oh, you're going to put this one first. What was the most striking experience you have lived when you were visiting the places of Emmanuel's novels?
Wow, many.
I'm sure that there are many,
The most,
but well, that comes to mind right now. Perhaps that was really something.
yeah, it's always. I have no. It's impossible. There is no the most one, but I have to tell one. There is a
Okay.
place in Pozzuoli, Italy, when the soldier, the one that was traveling with Paul on his last um, trip to Rome, and they landed in Pozzuoli, and that soldier, Julius Gaio, the soldier, um, he was all the time with Paul, and they became friends, and he became Christian. And when they landed in Pozzuoli, in Italy, Julius, he started crying and said that, well, Paul, I would like to be like you, a prisoner of Christ. And on that moment, Julius, he had to put the cuffs on himself, and Paul said to him, "Don't worry, you are my friend. You have to do your job. Do it." And the first time I went in there, it was so emotional that I could hear the sound of the thing. And in fact, I went there to record a video and things like that, and I couldn't. I think that it's in Café com Paulo at YouTube. Altino Mageste Café com Paulo. There's a short video in there. I couldn't do the video. I just started crying because
Yeah.
yes. So I like that moment. It was a striking experience.
Mhm. Who is your Stephen, Altino?
Hi, Mackenzie. Thank you for the question. Wow, guys, you are bringing tears to my eyes. um, my Stephen, I would like to say that my biggest example and my motivation here is Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier, for me, he plays the role of Stephen, yes, because he's that good friend that I never met, but he is always there. And the sense when I start traveling, when I start doing researches, and he was inspiring me. And I'm not saying that he was inspiring me direct in spirit or not like this, but he was present in the book. He was my my shadow. He was on my side all the times when I was reading. In fact, Jussara, when we went to Pedro Leopoldo, I say that I made all these travelings the all way around. The last trip that I went, it was Pedro Leopoldo. I met Jerusalem, Cafarnaum, everywhere, but I never been to Pedro Leopoldo. And when I went there, I say, well, everything happened here. So yes, Chico for me is my Stephen. Wow, I never been questioned that. Wow.
Yeah, we have time for one more question. If Father Damiano was Emmanuel, Alcione was Livia?
Rosa Maria,
Rosa Maria.
mi hermanita. Well, I cannot state that. I don't know, and there is no need that she has to be or not. But what I have to think is this group of characters, of this group of spirits, they have been together for centuries and centuries and centuries. All of them, in a way or another, they've been together previously in their existence. So we are working, we are um, getting better together, we are evolving together, and probably Alcyone could be Celia Lucius. So if, in case, all right, in theory, if Alcyone um, was um, Celia Lucius, I don't think that she was Livia, but it's just I'm just guessing, and I cannot say yes or not because there's some time in there. But the important thing is they are a wonderful person. It doesn't matter if who was who. What important is they are what they are. So yes.
Okay, so you have to come to an end. Any final words you would like to tell us, Altino, before we?
I would like to say thank you again, and once again, asking you apologize for my macaroni English. I know that it could be better, but that's what I have. I promise I will spend some time with you, and I say next time I do, I will do better. But it is a pleasure to be with you. And if there is any other question I would like to ask you, you can contact Jussara, and she can send me any other questions. And if anything that I can help, I would like to invite all of you American friends to follow me on the next trips on the GAP Grupo Amigos de Paulo. So we are planning doing our next new things in the future, and we also would like to invite you to give us your hand to send the information about this. If you want to do this, go to Café com Paulo on YouTube, on Facebook, Altino Mageste, and we have lots of things to learn together. And I would like to thank you. And thank you, Jussara, very much for your invitation. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And just to clarify, everyone, that is very important because I know that Altino likes to explain that all the travels that he does, there is no charge at all. You only pay for your expenses, and they are very Spartan, so to say. They really look for very affordable places to stay and to eat. So it's very affordable to everyone, and you only have to to deal with your own expenses. There is no any other charge for the valuable work that he is going to be giving us, teaching us and leading us. So if you have the opportunity, try to join in the future whenever COVID-19 allows us to do that again, right, Altino? So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Altino, so much. And we definitely would like to have you the next time, perhaps to talk more specifically from one of each of those 5 books that I'm sure then you will have more time, and we can discover more pearls that are hidden to us. And we are very grateful to all the good spirits that have been following us, without a doubt, even the spirit of Paul, that I'm sure we are very much connected to his soul and to our brother Jesus and to our Heavenly Creator for this blessed opportunity. So next week we will be having another friend that will be here with us, and his name is Alexandre Caldini, and he's going to talk to us about death according to Spiritism, which is a very appropriate at the moment. We are all, going through loss, if not in our immediate family, with friends and etc. And Alexandre has a very beautiful way and consoling way of talking to us. So at 11 a.m. Here, New York time. So thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank all of you. It was a pleasure.